Today's guest is Dr. Stephen Johnston. He's a father, radiologist, nonprofit founder, and Ironman athlete. When he found out his 9-year-old son Luke was going blind as a result of a rare disease, he founded a Race Against Blindness to fund a sight-saving research for his son and thousands of others like him. Though Stephen is relatively new to the nonprofit world, he's a man on a mission to raise $1 million for a clinical trial and taking on challenges like Ironman to raise money and be an example for his son. So far, they've raised over 6 figures, been featured on Good Morning America and the Dan Carity If I'm Being Honest podcast, and had TV spots in multiple major markets. Stephen lives outside of Phoenix and spends his spare time training for his next Ironman and traveling with his family to create lifelong sighted memories for Luke. Stephen has a unique perspective on finding purpose amidst adversity and channeling change. And I'm excited for this episode for you guys because we all face adversity as fathers, and Stephen is making a way through. All right, guys, here we go.
Don't move. Keep it locked. You already know. You're listening to the Forfeit Fatherhood podcast. And we're having conversations with dope dads covering the 4 pillars of fatherhood. We call it the Fit Fatherhood Formula. Faith, family, finance, and fitness. That's right. These dads are setting the pace in business and fatherhood. This show isn't only about the outside success. We're getting down to who you are. Gentlemen, it's time to get fit. And now, let's get into the show.
Back to the Forfeit Fatherhood podcast, a podcast for fathers by fathers, where we talk about the 4 pillars of fatherhood, which are faith, family, finance, and fitness. And I'm excited again. Like every time I have a guest on, I'm excited, right? Because I like talking to fatherhood, but I don't like talking about it by myself, right? So every time I have somebody on that can talk fatherhood back to me, is super exciting. But my guest today is Steve Johnston, and Steve has a really interesting mission and something that I think is going to be really cool for you guys to hear about. I watched the video; it was a little tearjerker. I'm not gonna lie, Steve, you got me. But I just because I care so much about my family and I just thinking about yours. But I won't steer the thunder on that. I'll let you kind of get into that. But again, my guest today is Steve Johnston. Steve, how you doing?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, like I said, I'm excited to have you on. I think a lot of times we see, we see stories on Good Morning America. We see things on the internet, these things that are happening to or for or with people. And we see some of the things that I guess we'll get into as we go on. Some of these, races for a cure and things like that. And we don't really connect to the story behind it. Like we just know it's a thing that people are doing to help people. We don't really know the story behind it, and your family is the story. And I think that's really interesting to get like the real family perspective and to hear from the father that's in that particular story. And so why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Steve? I don't want to keep stealing your thunder. I'll let you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, so I feel like I was a pretty normal dad, father of 2 kids, focused on career and all the usual things that everybody would be focused on as they're, becoming a new parent and raising young kids. And then when my son was about 7 years old, my world got turned upside down a bit. I found out that he has a rare genetic condition, and he is slowly losing his vision until he's expected to become legally blind by his mid-to-late teenage years. So that really shocked us and set off a chain of events to really fight for him, fight for a cure, and fight for all the kids who have what he has. So that's kind of been the mission that I've been in for the last couple of years since I found out about his diagnosis.
Oh, what exactly is the diagnosis? I've heard it, but I can't repeat it.
It's called retinitis pigmentosa, and it's caused by multiple different genetic conditions. His case is caused by Bardet-Biedl syndrome, which is a super rare condition. I'm actually a physician, and it's one of those things I never even heard of before I got the diagnosis. I completely, never heard of it. So it's a very rare condition, but nonetheless, it's obviously very devastating. Everybody has different progressions with this condition. Some people get vision loss later in life, and some people get vision loss very early in their life. And in his case, he kind of has the childhood version that progresses fairly rapidly to the point where, when we got the diagnosis, we very minor noticing vision changes, some small stuff. to the point where, in 10 years, he could be completely blind. And so that, it's pretty devastating and hard to accept as a man, as a father, as a parent, and all those things.
Yeah, yeah. What was it that you guys noticed that would make you, what kind of led to like, well, we should get this checked out? Like, was there something that happened, or like, how did you get to that point?
Yeah, obviously, parents are very hyper vigilant, right? I think you have to trust your gut. That's one of the big things I always tell any parent. Right? You know your kids better than anybody, so you notice all the little things, all the little nuances about them. And so, like when there's something wrong, like parents, and your gut is telling you something is off, you need to trust it and you need to run that down. And ultimately, starting to just notice little vision things at night. That's one of the first vision impairments that you notice is that there's a night vision problem. Like it's hard to see at night. I remember the very first time I noticed anything was wrong. I was laying in bed with my son, doing our nighttime routine, reading books at night and all that kind of stuff, and getting ready for bed. And I'm laying there with him, and he asked where his favorite stuffed animal was, Wolfie. And I'm like, okay, He's like, where's Wolfie? I'm like, oh, Wolfie's right here, buddy. And he's like, I can't see him. I'm like, you can't see Wolfie? He's right here. And it's like, I can see him fine. It's like, 12 inches away from me, and he couldn't see him. And I was like, okay. And it's kind of struck me. I'm like, something's wrong, right? And then long story short, that's kind of the first thing that goes with this diagnosis is the vision loss at night. And it progresses from there. But, those are some of the earliest things that we noticed. And ultimately, we kind of went into the doctor's office with, the request to get tested for this condition because we've done some research and figured out, some other, stuff going on. And we got some crazy looks like, you want us to do what? You must have tested what? And ultimately, it ended up being what he asked. So trust your parents, your father, you know your kids. If there's something wrong, you need to keep chasing it down until you're satisfied either something is not wrong and they've done enough testing to show that your child is okay, or you find out what's wrong and then you can start doing something about it.
Yeah, man, that's that. Oof. You definitely have to trust your gut. I think, because I think a lot of times I wouldn't even know how I would have reacted there. I'm just hearing you tell the story. I'm like, yeah, is he joking? Like he doesn't see him? Like, oh, like Wolfie's in, because my youngest has a stuffed animal that she calls Wolfie, and I'm just wondering, like she's messing around, like she can't see Wolfie, like it's kind of a joke. But then when it becomes serious and it's like real, like you really can't see it, I can't imagine now what are the thoughts that are racing through your head, because prior to that, everything's normal. Like you've been, like you said, you were just being a normal father, doing your fatherly thing. You had a nighttime routine and doing all the right things, and something that is outside of your control pops up. I think that's kind of one of the things that gives us as men, especially as fathers and leaders of our household, the most trouble is the uncontrollables. And like if it's something that we can handle, like if something I can do, it's broke, oh yeah, I can fix it. Or if it's something going on, we need more money, I can go make more money. There's a lot of stuff that we can do, but when the things get outside of our control, it's when we start to panic. But it seems like, and obviously there's a longer story to it, right? But it seems like you maybe didn't panic as much as maybe I would have, and you kind of just, you put on your hat and kind of went to.
Well, there was plenty of panic. I mean, sometimes our parenting is really calm inside and you're pooping your pants, like you gotta keep that.
Yeah.
You gotta keep that calm face on, and like sit with your family through those tough times. But on the inside, doubt's there, the fear is there, certainty is there, all those things. You feel all those things on the inside, just like anybody else. But yeah, the worry was real and immediate, and luckily, I was able to navigate that situation and get through it. But a lot of hard times, a lot of tough moments, a lot of challenges to get through in those early days of getting that diagnosis of, this is what's going to happen. And to the exact point you mentioned, which is the stuff that's out of your control is what bugs you the most and what is the hardest to face and what the hardest to get through. And what I was told when we got the diagnosis is there's nothing you can do about this. He's going to lose his vision. He's going to go blind, and there's nothing you can do about it. And as a father, does all those things. It's like, no, that's not okay. I'm not okay with that. No, no. And so that's when that control becomes really important to, is there something I can do to take control of the situation, even if I can't control the outcome? Can I do something about it in some way or another? So those are definitely the hardest things to face as a parent, as a father.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so you go in, you had them test specifically for something that you thought it was. They come back and say that it is in fact that, but you can't do anything about it. What happens next?
Yeah, I said the typical grieving process ensued at that point. You kind of go through denial, you go through some anger, just like this isn't happening. You go through the pain of all of it, and then eventually that pain turned to the feeling of the need to do something. What can I do about this? Is there something I can do from raising awareness, raising funds? Is there research happening about this? Is there some way I can make an impact so that either I can save their eyesight someday, or I can prevent somebody else from having to go through this someday? If I can't, immediately impact the situation now, maybe I can prevent this feeling that I'm feeling right now for somebody else someday. And so that's really what, ultimately became the outcome of getting that diagnosis and go through that was, we're taking action. We're going to do something about this. And also what that looked like was starting a nonprofit to raise awareness and fund research for his condition.
And that the nonprofit is the Race Against Blindness, correct?
Yep. So a Race Against Blindness, that is our nonprofit, and we've been a 501c3 for the last year and a half. And in that time, we went from having, like I said, no hope for anything. We're just going to try to do something about it. I have no idea what we're going to be able to accomplish, but we found a research team that was working on his condition. We got behind them, started fundraising for that effort, and now we're very close to being able to fund a real clinical trial that could potentially save his vision and everyone else that has his condition. So it's really been a wild 18 months of doing this and the fundraising and trying to make this thing a reality. But we're really, I'm grateful that we're in the place we're at to be able to potentially make a real impact on this.
Yeah. So now that you've got all this kind of going on, you got your nonprofit, you've got the diagnosis, but you're working on, you're figuring out ways to do something about it. How does that change your day-to-day life as just, as Steve, as a father, as a radiologist, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So obviously there's more that happens, right? It's a different lifestyle now, a different life now to some degree. But do you try to keep a sense of normalcy with family, or is there like a different thought process that goes into it now that you have this potential outcome looming ahead of you?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question because there's a lot of layers to that. So I still have my normal full-time job, the nonprofit work I do entirely. I don't take any income from it or anything. It's, I run the nonprofit completely, as a nonprofit, and get anything from it. So I still have to work my full-time job. Now I essentially have a second full-time job that I've thrown into the mix. So, time management has become an important aspect of what I'm doing with balancing, the various priorities of, still being able to provide for my family, take care of everybody, doing this nonprofit, set aside for this care for my son, and then still being a dad in there, being present, being at all the things, going to son's karate or, events, being just being a part of the day-to-day routine. So the time management part of it has been hard. I think like many people in this situation, a lot of men, is we just sacrifice ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we my personal time is what sacrifices. I get less time for myself. I get much less sleep than I used to. I kind of took a night job to be able to pay the bills and all that kind of stuff and do all this other stuff during the day. So I don't sleep as much as I used to, and that's one of the sacrifices that I was just willing to take. I was like, this is something that's important now. I had this small window of opportunity to maybe make a difference on this, and I'm willing to sleep 2 or 3 hours a night sometimes and do it for that. But I still very much made a priority that my son feels like he has a normal childhood. He feels like he's doing and being a part of all the normal things. Even though I spend many hours a day working on, this foundation work, trying to make sure that this research becomes a reality, he doesn't see that every day. He doesn't, it's not his reality every single day. He's still just a normal kid doing all those normal things. He's off at karate camp right now, and he's doing all the kid things, and he's having a normal childhood. So I try to not let this infiltrate into his life as well. Obviously he knows what's going on. He knows his diagnosis, and he's aware of all that, but he doesn't see and live it quite as fully as I do every single day. So that's been a really big important thing for me, is to make sure that he has a normal childhood and he's just to feel like he's a kid still, and not have that taken away from him.
And that's awesome, man. It's interesting how resilient children are, but then also like I don't even know how to phrase it, because I noticed it with my daughters too. Like if something's going on, they're like, "Oh man, that's not cool," or whatever. It's not. But then they just find ways to just keep being them. Like they just keep doing their thing. Like they just keep being kids. And I think as we get older, we lose some of that, and we get so fixated on, the cars and the careers and the relationships and cars and houses and all these things that we have to have. And we get bogged down when things aren't going exactly the way we want to. And kids are like, all right, that sucked. All right, I'm gonna do this now. And they just kind of have the uncanny ability to move on to the next kid-friendly thing. And I think that's really awesome that even though you're making, tons of adjustments and sacrifices and investments, you're doing all those things and still able to be present and be available and make sure he's having the childhood that you want him to have, that you want for him. And I think a lot of times when we do those things, when we sacrifice and all that stuff, we kind of throw ourselves into it completely. And then that's that reason why we're not present. And not that we're looking for a reason, but when it comes to it, it's like, well, I had to do this and I had to do that and I had to provide and so we're not present in the way that we want to be, and we allow that to not be an excuse to be a reason. And I think it's really cool that you're pushing past that and still finding the opportunities to be present in both your kids' lives.
Yeah, it's obviously really important, and I won't sugarcoat it and say that like I'm around as much as I want. Like of course there are times where I have to be away doing something when I would rather be staying at home. I think that's the ever-present talent of every man who's providing for his family and taking care of his kids and doing all that stuff, is that there is that you have to make those decisions sometimes where it's like, I have to do this or I can be there with my kids and then I can't provide. And so those challenges and those trade-offs are weigh heavily on us. I don't know a single dad who is doing what we're doing and taking care of their kids. It is not a struggle for them mentally, where they're making that mental, like, man, I wish I could do it all. And you can't, you can't always. And so I'm doing my best to be present and do all those things and be a part of their lives every single day, and I feel like I'm doing a good job of that. I am proud of the time I am putting in and the presence that I'm having with them. But of course, I wish I could do more. I want to do more, and then that feeling that you're not doing enough always is there in the back of your mind. Like, how could I be doing more? Should I be doing more? Should I be doing it differently? That uncertainty is always one of those things. And that's a real challenge.
Yeah. How are you finding, or how are you dealing with that? Because obviously we all have that feeling, right? But we don't have the same circumstances that you're being faced with right now. And so you've got the feeling that we all have, and then you got an extra layer of things and responsibilities kind of that maybe some of us don't have. How are you managing to fight through that or to overcome that challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you understand your purpose and your why, that it makes a lot of things much more easier to accept and get through. So my why is obviously very clear. I'm doing this because of his condition and trying to save his eyesight and all that's like him. That's great. That's important why, but it's no more important than dad who's like, I want my kid to be able to go to college or whatever the thing like that. Those why are really important. Like, I can never compare and contrast whys. There's people who have much harder things than I'm facing. With doing cancer and horrible things that are unthinkable that I could not even imagine processing. So why is ultimately what gets, I think, us through these moments is knowing what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then that, ultimately helps us make the best decisions we can to achieve the things that we need to achieve.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there with like the purpose and knowing what your why is. I think for me personally, when things get rough, I'm always able to kind of remind myself that, I finally is my purpose. And so whatever I'm struggling with or whatever kind of thing I'm coming up against or whatever, imposter syndrome or whatever it is that I'm facing, I'm like, you know what? I'm doing it for them and to make sure that they have the life that I would want them to live and the life that they want to live. And so whatever it is, chin up, chest out, we're going to face it and go through it and make sure that everything is okay. And I think a lot of times we lack clarity of purpose. I think yours is obviously very clear, right? Like there's something that made that really clear to you. But I think a lot of guys struggle with finding that, right? And some guys find purpose in work, and so they go all in on their career, or they don't have any idea what their purpose is, and so they're kind of like a rudderless ship. They're just kind of going from thing to thing and hoping for something to be the thing to inspire them. So I think two things. I think we're lucky to know our purpose, to know your why. I think you're lucky to, or blessed, I should say, to have some clarity on that. But there's also sometimes it makes things tougher, I can imagine like if I didn't have a purpose, I could kind of just, well, whatever, just kind of fly by the seat of my pants and just do whatever comes to mind that particular day. But I know that I have something greater that I'm working for. I have, I heard somebody say the other day, as a parent, you're responsible for your child's childhood memories. And I'm like, man, the childhood memories that I cherish so much, like those things are really, really important to me, like really near and dear to my heart. And I want to make sure that my kids have those same type of quality memories. So I gotta make sure I'm doing my job well. So it's a blessing to have that. But then sometimes it makes it harder because you have to do the thing, right? You have to get it done. You have to figure out a way. You have to sacrifice, like you mentioned. So
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah, there's no way around it. Yeah, that the why and the purpose is everything. And I think that people take for granted that doing small things can make a big difference in finding your purpose. I think being in the service to others is a really, really important opportunity for people who are looking for their why and they don't feel like they quite had it. Obviously, when you're parents, that being responsible for your kids and being of service to them is important. But then, going out in your community, like even just simple volunteering activities can really inspire you to see how much you can get for, going and helping others. And that can really light a fire in people. And I certainly felt that because it's like, yeah, I started doing this because of my son, but now that I've connected with people in the community who are going through the same thing and they were looking for hope. They were looking for, being able to know that something is being done about this, and it's like, wow, now I'm responsible to so many people who have this condition. I'm fighting for more people than just my son and my family. That service to others means so much. So I think that so he's looking to that why. Go out there, get involved, volunteer. Find something that matters to you. Volunteer at a veterans event or anything. So many opportunities to help, and then you don't know where that will go, but that can really be a great way to find your why.
I like that. I think being of service is huge. I really like the idea of servant leadership. And I do think that it does give you a sense of, or at least can help you find a sense of purpose. I think every time I volunteered, even when it was like, oh man, I can't believe I volunteered to do this. It's terrible. Like community cleanups, like I really don't want to be out here cleaning up. It's terrible. It's hot. I always feel great about it afterwards. Like, man, like it really affected some change. And like, I interacted with some people. Like we did last year, we went down to Skid Row in downtown LA, and just passed out food and just help people. Like it was just whatever. There was like a list of things that you can do. And I just did a little bit of all of them. And some of it was like, because you're kind of apprehensive about doing it. And you have like some anxiety about getting in there and really interacting with people. Because you just don't know. You don't know what you're going to encounter, right? But at the end of the day, I just had this overwhelming feeling of like fulfillment, I guess is probably how I would explain it. I felt full. Like I felt like I had just done all the things that I was supposed to do that day. And it felt really good. And since then, I've continued to find ways to help with the community, to get involved in homeless shelters and food banks, and trying to find opportunities to be of service outside of my household. Because I do think it's great to be a leader in your home. And I do think that you have a huge responsibility to be the leader in your house. But after you've done that, as you're doing that, you also have a responsibility to be a leader in your community. That expands past your community to your county, to your city, your state. Like it just continues to grow. And I think if each one of us takes a little bit of effort and gets involved in a way, I think they can do a whole lot to change the society we often complain about.
100%. I could not agree more. And when you're doing those things and volunteering and getting involved in your community, you never know what effect you're going to have on somebody else and what that could change for them. Because I certainly, in my journey of going through what I'm going through, like, I've turned to books and podcasts and, all the different things. And there have been some really transformative moments where I hear somebody say something or I see something that somebody did. And I'm like, okay, they did that. I can do this. Those things really impact you. So getting out there and doing those things really make a difference. I guarantee there's people who watch your podcast and there's somebody who was in a tough spot and they're like, he did it. Do it. I'm going to get out of this place I'm in. You going out in the community and volunteering. Maybe that person who was in a tough place that put them in that situation, all they needed was somebody coming out and showing some compassion to them to, say, okay, I'm getting right. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to take a step forward. The first step is always the hard step, right? When you're in a tough place, if you're stuck, you're in a tough place. It's like, how do you take that first step? Sometimes it's like, that's all it takes. Once you got the first step, you get moving, you get going. But that's how you then, it's like we talked about it. It all butterflies out from there. Like you made a positive impact on somebody. Now they've turned their life around and they go around and they become an influential speaker and they help because you went out there and you helped them. That series of events happen. If we all go help one person, if we all go do that for somebody, man, the butterfly effect can be so big. And I wish that was something people could really appreciate more. So I totally agree with you that service to others and servant leadership is just so important.
Yeah. All right, well, let's stay on that. All right, we talked a little bit about against blindness, but let's kind of dive into it a little bit more. Like, what is it that you're doing with the nonprofit, and then how can we be involved? How can we help?
Yeah, so our entire mission right now is we're funding research that can cure this positive childhood blindness that my son has, which is called RPBBS1, and we're funding research that is past animal models, and it's really on the cusp of becoming a human clinical trial. So it's a really unique opportunity in the sense that there's a lot of medical research that is funded by nonprofits, but it's all very kind of distant and not very tangible. Like, oh, we're going to cure cancer, and it could be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years before something comes of it. In this case, we have this real tangible thing, this clinical trial that could, happen in the next year or two. Once the funding is all secured, that could really save, these kids' eyesight. And they're, so like you could be, you could turn on the news in a couple of years and see that this clinical trial that you donated to happened, and that there's kids walking around that have their vision saved because of you making an impact. So it's a really unique opportunity in the sense of, the immediacy of the impact that we can have. And that's really exciting for us in terms of our kind of mission of, knowing that what we're doing is going to really affect some change. The first thing is always like awareness and just getting the word out there. So like, the no possibility that anybody can make a difference is tell your friends, share it on social media, let people know about it. People don't know that, we can't achieve our mission. So, any opportunity we get to kind of spread the word and spread the mission, that's kind of our first and foremost thing that we're always working towards.
Okay. All right. So I'm assuming that race has something to do with it, since it's a race against blindness. It may also be a play on words, because you're trying to get something done before the diagnosis is complete, I guess it would be the way to say it. So you're racing against time in that regard. But I saw that you're an Ironman athlete. Are you when you're racing Ironman, are people donating to you as a racer, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it is a play on words, like you said. So, when we got the diagnosis and we knew we had, this short window of time to do something about it, we felt like we were racing against time. We were racing against blindness. And so that was part of the name. And then we decided to take on racing as a part of our kind of awareness for you. And it's not just for the nonprofit, it was really for me to be an example for my son. So Luke's mom, she's done a bunch of Ironmans and stuff like that. So she's a skilled triathlete. And me
Okay.
on the other hand, I hate running. I hate swimming. I hate it. I couldn't think of any worse way to spend my time than those things.
I'm with you.
I'd be happy playing a game of pickleball or in the gym lifting weights, and those are all things I enjoy. But that wouldn't serve the purpose of trying to be an example for him, show him how to do hard things, how to overcome challenges, how to do things that suck. There's going to be a lot of challenges he has in his life that he needs to overcome. I wanted to be an example for him to do that, and I can't be an example if I haven't done things myself. Like, I can't, he's in a tough moment. I can't say, hey, you can get through this. It's okay. You can get through it. What experience am I pulling from where he can believe what I'm saying? So that's where that really came from, is I'm going to do something that sucks. And to me, that's doing, this, triathlon stuff. And so I took it on, never having really swam, run, or biked in my life to speak of. And, and I remember the first time I crossed that finish line for him, and I picked him up and I barely finished. I barely got across that finish line, and it was awful. It was just such a horrible experience, doing that race. But man, I picked him up and I told him, I'm like, man, Luke, if you're ever in a hard situation, you ever feel like you can't get through something, remember what you saw today. Remember, what you saw here. I got through this. You can get through anything. I wanted those moments where he saw me do something hard. He saw me overcome a challenge. And I want to translate that to him so that, in his moments when he's having his challenges, he knows that he can get through that, and I can help him and teach him and be like, this is how I did it. This is how you can do it. So that's really where the racing part came in for me personally, in terms of the actual race part of a Race Against Blindness.
Okay. All right. Hey, look, I'm with you. I don't mind sprinting, but the distance running, I can't. I hate it. I'll do it, but I don't enjoy it. My wife and I, pre-kids, we did a sprint triathlon because she I don't know why she doesn't like running either, but she's done marathons, she's done half marathons, she's done triathlons. I don't know why she does them. She doesn't like doing it until she finishes it, and then she's like, "Oh, that was so great!" Right? I think she does it for the challenge. But I was like, you know what? I'll do this one with you. It's a sprint. It's not that bad. The run wasn't that bad. The biking wasn't that bad. But the swim, they tried to drown me. I'm sure they were trying to drown me because the swim was after everything else. And so I felt like I had lead in my shorts. I was just barely staying above the water. So I commend you and your wife on doing these and completing it. And I do think words are one thing, actions are another. So telling him that, you face something hard, you can do it. You can showing him and being the example is so much more impactful because there's action behind the words. And so I think that's a really, really cool way to do it. Because you definitely could have just told him, right? You could have been like, hey, things are going to be tough, life's tough, and, things are hard, but you went out and did the hard thing and are continuing to do the hard thing. Not just this one time I'm going to do it, but continuing to do the hard thing. And I think that's really phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Now, so now that we're, guys have been listening for a little while, I kind of know, what's going on. Now, where do we come in at? What can we do?
Yeah, honestly, I know there's so many important causes that anybody can donate, get behind, volunteer their time with. If anybody's moved by anything that, they've heard, we love to connect with people. We're on all the usual social media channels. We got our website, Race Against Blindness. Check us out. See if there's anything that moves you. See if there's anything that, you want to get involved in any way. We definitely appreciate anybody's support, whether it's a little like, share, being a part of it. It all means a difference in the world to us.
Yeah, yeah. Fellas, I listen, I know if you guys have been listening this long, and I know you have, it is definitely something that you want to be a part of, to donate to, because it's one of us, right? He's one of us. Like I said, like there's all these, like you said, there's things that you can donate to, and there's plenty of things that you can be a part of or to share, and we share stuff, we donate stuff, we do all these things, but we're not really ever connected to them, right? And we never really know who is behind it, right? And now we've got a name and a voice and a face, and we're not only donating to Luke, who we hope to receive the clinical trials and that everything works out, but then there's also a ton of other kids that are prior to this were probably just kind of dealing with it in silence. Like they just had to, there was nobody there was no advocate for them, and now there is. So it's, the onus is now on us to do our part to help to spread the word. Even if that's it, right? This is a no cost way, is to spread the word, share something, say something, mention it to someone, because like I said, I didn't know that this was a thing. Like I was completely unaware until I started to read, and I saw the video, and I'm like, yo, this could happen to anyone. Like it could have been me, and I would have had no idea. In fact, I guess it could still be me and we would have no idea, right? Like, it's not like it has to happen when you're a child. And so with that being said, fellas, if you listen this far, the next thing to do would be to, at the very least, tell a friend. The next best thing would be to go to a raceagainstblindness.com and make a donation. I think that will push the needle forward. And we talked about being of service earlier. You probably feel good about it. I don't think you're going to regret it. But you're not going to think back 15 minutes from now and have some quote unquote buyer's remorse. Like you're going to feel good about making that donation. So Steve, I know I don't have like a list of questions, but I do have two questions that I definitely want to ask you, and maybe 2.5, like a 2A and 2B. Being that this is a fatherhood podcast, and we've obviously talked about a lot of different things, but the center of it is fatherhood. What does fatherhood mean to you?
Fatherhood means to me, gosh, that's a great question. It's all about putting your family first and being there for them and leading them through the good times, the bad times, the hard times, and being a example and a rock for your family. And I think that that's the most important thing that men can do as fathers is that for their family and their kids.
Yeah, I agree. Being the tip of the spear, right? Being the vanguard of the movement of the family. I think you hit that right on the head. Here's the second question, and it's a two-part question. So that's a 2A and 2B. If you had a message that you wanted to give all fathers, not what you just said about what fatherhood means to you, but like if you could get all the fathers to sit down right now and they're listening to the podcast, and this next thing you say is the message that you think they all need to hear, what would that message be?
Live life for the fullest and don't wait, because tomorrow is not guaranteed, and you cannot know what will happen tomorrow. I can say that from my experience. If there's one thing I could just bottle up and give to people as a gift, the greatest gift would be to have that, feeling like, it's time to live life. It's time to do all the things, because you hear about this with people who, are later in life, they get diagnosed with cancer or something, and they suddenly feel like they're going to go through their bucket list, or they're going to go through all their things. But like, why does it have to be that thing is spawned by a horrible diagnosis or a horrible thing? I, of course, was in that boat myself, where like I was just kind of living life and going through things, and then it wasn't until this happened to me that I really felt that push to travel, see the world, do all the things, and try to show my son the world before time runs out. And if you can do that, feeling as somebody without having to have him go through that bad thing, that diagnosis, whatever it is, I'll tell you what it is. So if I can give any of you listeners, that motivation to just do the thing, take the risk, choose the thing you've been wanting to do, and don't wait till tomorrow, do it today, get off this podcast and go start now. That would be what I would give people.
Yeah, I think we think we always have time, right? We know that time. But the one thing that we can all agree on is that we don't have enough time in a day. Like we just need more time to do more stuff. But then we seem to, in the same breath, forget that time is of the essence, and we don't have more time. We're always putting things off for later, or maybe we'll get to it. When they're a little older, we'll do this, or when I'm a little older, I'll do. And the reality is that neither one of those things are guaranteed, and maybe not in the way that you want to, right? Because my wife and I, we talked about this, and we're kind of going back and forth because we're like, we obviously need to be saving for our children's future, right? And we are. Now, I'm not saying that we're not. We're definitely putting a lot towards that. But at the same time, because it's like, okay, we'll take everything and we'll put it towards that and make sure that they have all the stuff when they're older and we're gone or whatever. But then we're like, because we can retire when we retire, we can go travel and do stuff for us then. And I'm like, we were at the airport a couple of weeks ago, and it was like an elderly couple, and I told them, oh, that's great, like that's gonna be us in 20 years. But then they had to get like a wheelchair to get from the gate to. I was like, never mind. Like I don't want to travel like that. You know what I mean? Like, and it kind of clicked for me. Like, there's a lot of stuff that we should do now. Granted, we could probably do it when we're 65 or 70, but we're not going to be able to do it with the same energy and excitement that we could do it now. And so I agree with you. Do it now, whatever it is. Do whatever part of it you can do now. You may not be able to do all of it now, but some part of it. Start making the steps or strides towards it, because the last thing you want to have at the end of this thing is regrets, or the what ifs. What if I would have done this, or what if I would have done that? Just do it. Just do it, right? Second part to that question. So you've kind of given a message to all the dads. If you could, at the same time now, we're going to get 2 people to listen to this particular episode of the podcast, and they're your children. What do you want to tell them?
My kids, I hope that they just look back on all this, and that when they grown up, that they know that I gave it all. I gave everything I had for them, and I did it all without regrets. And I want them to do the same for their lives and to be living their lives to the fullest. I want them to be living without regrets as well. Yeah, I was lost everything about the kids.
Don't we all, man? It's amazing how they have. It's like they have like a direct line to that part of us, right? It's funny. What movie were we watching? We were watching a movie the other day, and I've seen it before. What was it? So I'm on this kick where I'm trying to get my kids to watch movies that I watched as a kid, like cartoons and things like that. And we watch, what is it called? Dang, the main character was like a little mouse, and then in New York is like Bible goes west of, I forgot what it is. But anyway, you know the movie I'm talking about?
Yeah, yes.
I can't think of the name, but I remember as a kid crying in the movie, like, oh man, this is so sad. And I'm watching it with them, and there's like the scene with him and his dad. And I look at my daughters, and they're not crying, but like they're fully invested in the movie. And I'm like, oh God dang it, my eyes are sweating. Man, I've seen this before. I already know what's gonna happen. What is going on here? And like, just super emotional, because I'm like, that connection that he had with his father, and I'm trying to create the same connection. And I was like, oh man, these kids made me soft.
Yeah. Before I started doing all this, it was like, I wouldn't have imagined going on the internet and crying. Now I've done it multiple times where I'm on a podcast, or I'm like, filming a video for something. It's just like, here comes the tears. But it's okay, like that's human emotion. That's all right. That means you feel. It means you're real. So it's not something you shy away from, but it is a complex emotion, and those sensations of that. So
yeah, and I think it's something that we're not, as men, we don't get conditioned to deal with enough. And so when that feeling comes, you're like, what is this? But I agree with you. It's a human emotion. It's something we just have to embrace and accept as a part of it.
Yeah, I think the timing on all those things is what's most important. It's like the time and the place for it. Like, as long as those emotions, can be controlled and felt in the right time, the right place. That's the most important thing. And then when you have to be too strong to severe all the things, it's game time. Like that's when that's gonna come out, and you gotta do what you gotta do. So yeah, we're not trained for those moments.
Yeah, yeah. Steve, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend some time with us and to record the podcast and be a guest and share your story. I think it's awesome that you would do that. But more importantly, the way that you are working for your son and working for other people with the same or similar diagnosis, the things that you're doing, creating a nonprofit and going out and putting yourself out there to kind of, like I say, be the vanguard of this whole thing and like really get out and spread the word. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if there's enough flowers to give you for the work that you're doing, the sacrifices that you're making, the courage that it takes to do what you're doing. I really, really appreciate that for numerous reasons, but one of them, aside from the two that I just mentioned, is because it's an inspiration. Like I'm inspired I got to do something. Like Steve is killing it right now. What the heck am I got to do something. You know what I mean? Like there's this push or this pull of inspiration because of the work you're doing. And so I really, really appreciate you for who you are and what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The one thing I say is that I've learned this, and I always tell the same to other people, is if you can't compare your situation or your struggle or what you've accomplished or any of those things to other people, like you are immediately going down a rabbit hole that cannot be recovered from. But use other people as motivation. Use them as to make you be in the best situation you can be. So that you use as motivation to never compare yourself to others, because it is not. You can never do that. It's not it just doesn't work. But I appreciate you all those kind words about me. It means a lot. Certainly, really value being here and getting to talk about my story. Like I said, just sharing the word, sharing the mission is so incredibly important to what we're doing. And if we can just reach one more person who was able to help reach one more person, and it was absolutely a success. And I truly appreciate you having this platform here to be able to help people, help dads, help men. It's just such an important thing. It's not talked about enough, and it's a really important thing that you're doing. So thank you as well. So you're an inspiration right there in return.
Thank you. Steve, if guys are wanting to reach out, and all this stuff will probably be in the show notes, but for people who aren't watching or who don't click on the show notes, they're wanting to reach out to you, if they're wanting to connect or they're wanting just to donate or to share the link, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I have my personal, Instagram page. I'm not super crazy active on it, but I do some dad stuff on it. It's dad.first.blindness. Please shoot me a message there. I love to connect. Just stay in touch. Offer advice if possible, or whatever it is that I may be of service to. Please, drop a line. We have all of our nonprofit pages. There are great ways to connect for like the nonprofit stuff, or Race Against Blindness on Facebook, Instagram, all the things. But we'd love to hear from you and love to connect. And yeah, it was after anything, say the word, try it out.
Awesome. All right, man. Steve, thank you again. Like I say, I really appreciate you joining us, and I appreciate you outside of just being on the podcast. But I thank you for taking your time, because I understand how important time is and how little of it we all have. So thank you for taking the time, and I'm going to do my best to share I'm going to donate myself personally, put it out there in every social media aspect I can, and start to spread the word, because I think it's more than a worthy cause. I don't even know if it didn't even feel good to say that right now. Like it's bigger. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to say it like that, but I think it's definitely something that we all should contribute to. So I will definitely do my part in trying to spread the word. But again, thank you for being on the podcast, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you. It's no other. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support.
All right. Let me see. You just tuned into another episode of the Forfeit Fatherhood podcast. Thank you once again for listening. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow me at You Can Call Me Coach on Instagram. Also follow the podcast at Forfeit Fatherhood, the number 4 and the letter U on You Can Call Me Coach. Go ahead and flip over to the next episode, man. I know you love this one, so you'll probably love the next one. Excited for you guys to hear it.